We are each viewing the world through a lens. This lens is difficult to notice, though, because it doesn't exist. Rather, this lens is a collective conception of influential intangibles: culture, beliefs, values, awareness, and all sorts of other ingredients we picked up in our past. Together, these ingredients amount to a figurative lens, a lens that sits between the world external to ourselves and our internal experience of it, focusing our awareness on particular details. Through books, writers with minds and prose superior to my own brought this lens through which we are each viewing the world to my attention. Had I not copied a few of their particularly profound passages into my commonplace book, I probably wouldn't have noticed it myself. Henry David Thoreau wrote, "The question is not what you look at, but what you see." In the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, Robert Pirsig wrote, "We take a handful of sand from the endless landscape of awareness around us, and we call that handful of sand the world." In When Breath Becomes Air, Paul Calithiani, not sure how to say his last name, penned, "In the end, it cannot be doubted that each of us only sees part of the picture. The doctor sees one, the painter another, the engineer a third, the economist a fourth, the pearl diver a fifth, the alcoholic a sixth, the cable guy a seventh, the sheep farmer an eighth, the Indian beggar a ninth, the pastor a 10th. Human knowledge is never contained in one person. It grows from the relationships we create between each other and the world, and is still never complete. And truth with the capital T comes somewhere above all of them." Herding these literary giants together and standing on their shoulders for a look, it is easy to see that we see the same things differently. In the process of sensation becoming experience, we seem to each have our own unique, tremendous something, dictating which sensations we consciously notice and framing what we think about them. For simplicity's sake, we can call this the lens through which we view the world, a lens through which we must all look. This lens is like a pair of sunglasses inextricably glued to our heads, tinting not just every ray of light, but our experience of every sense and sensation. One example of lenses at work that comes to mind was hiking way back into the Beartooth Mountains to find this glacier with my friend. After hiking for 6 hours, we were stunned to find the glacier, which was over 5 miles long when first discovered in the early 1900s, was simply gone. My immediate thought was, damn, global warming, while my friend with more conservative political leanings simultaneously said, wow, the local weather patterns must have changed. I was even more stunned by the second discrepancy than the surprised disappearance of the glacier. How could we glimpse something as simple as melting ice and simultaneously draw two completely different conclusions? Of course, our past experiences were filled with people telling us two very different stories about melting glaciers. Once we realized the power of this lens that lies between us and our experience of the world, it's natural to start asking questions. Questions like, do I like the lens I look through? Or, what would the world be like through someone else's lens? Or even, my God, how do I take this thing off? Understanding we all have a unique lens through which we are viewing the world lends many awareness-expanding questions and gifts. As a concrete concept, the lens helps us understand why others see the world fundamentally different from the way we see it. We can find compassion for even people we might consider, quote, evil, understanding their past experiences and largely their childhoods in which they had little control over, can pose the lens through which they view the world. Most curious, though, awareness of our lens begs a question. Can we shape our lenses? Because if so, we could fundamentally change how we experience the world. Our lenses are composed of culture, beliefs, values, awareness, and all sorts of other ingredients which we picked up in our past, right? And the experiences we have today will continue to shape those ingredients. So, by choosing some of the experiences we have today, does it not make sense that we can shape the lens through which we will view the world tomorrow? I see this ability to shape our lenses by deliberately choosing certain experiences as an unsung fountain of free will. Of course, most of the experiences we will have will happen without our choosing. However, once aware that our experiences shape the lens through which we see, and that we can deliberately choose some of our experiences, each of us has the ability to become our own opticians, working to fundamentally change the way we will experience the world tomorrow by deliberately shaping our lens today. This begs another question, though. What sort of experiences can we seek to shape our lens? What follows is a short list of resources I've discovered thus far in life for working on my lens and better shaping my experience of the world. Number 1, books. For me, nothing cleans and shapes the lens like reading a book. There's something about the self-paced control with which you can read and reread a passage when you have a hunch you're not quite grasping something the author seems to grasp. Like suddenly noticing the edge of the protective plastic layer on a scratched-up cell phone screen, thumbing for it, and peeling it away for a clearer view. Books are like that for the lens through which we experienced life. Perhaps early 20th century French novelist and purveyor of remarkable insight, Marcel Proust, penned it best. The writer's work is merely a kind of optical instrument that makes it possible for the reader to discern what, without the book, he would perhaps have never seen in himself. Also, what we read is of utmost importance, because we will both see and become more like the books we read. Number 2, people. The more time we spend with a person, the more our lens will be shaped by theirs. Over the past few years, my brother's been working to become a fitness and mobility expert. I have a background in anatomy from college, so we often discuss his latest discoveries. Lately, he's been studying correct posture for anything from sitting to running to lifting weights. And now, when sitting, running, or lifting weights, I can't help but analyze and try to better my own form. This is a recording, so you cannot see the picture of the head-standing man about to be plowed by a wave in the photograph above. But he sees possibility in the present better than any human I've ever met. I took some of my best chances I've ever taken, largely because I spent a grand summer in Hawaii attached at the hip with him, and now see opportunity the way he sees opportunity. While this strongly suggests we want to spend time with the people we want to be more like, it is also vital to spend time with a wide variety of people. If we surround ourselves only with people who have similar views to ourselves, the dust of unawareness will not be cleared from our lenses, and we will run the great risk of thinking what we see is what is, and that anyone who sees it differently is simply wrong. Lastly, discussion groups rock. Discussion groups are places where everyone gets together to examine their lens and collectively try to see the world a little clearer. Number 3, art. Proust, the French novelist I previously quoted above, believed art was the best way to see through another lens. He said, "A pair of wings, a different respiratory system which enabled us to travel through space, would in no way help us, for if we visited Mars or Venus while keeping the same senses, they would clothe everything we could see in the same aspect of the things of the earth. The only true voyage, the only bath in the fountain of youth, would be not to visit strange lands, but to possess other eyes, to see the universe through the eyes of another, of 100 others, to see the universes that each of them sees, that each of them is, and this we do with great artists. With artists like these, we really fly from star to star." I didn't understand this function of art until I built a portfolio website for my mom's photographs. Through many hours of interacting with her art, my experience of sight began to shift. The best way I can describe it is I used to see objects as separate and more so for their function. But now sight sometimes becomes this whole, ever-changing based on where my eyes are tapestry, in which movement of my point of view is not unlike the spin of a kaleidoscope. The greatest artists offer the world what can be seen or felt, but for whatever reason isn't. 4, travel. I realize Proust just denounced travel as a means of acquiring, quote, other eyes in the above quote. But I disagree. It's true. In foreign lands, we will still see the world through our own lens, but potential lens-shaping influences are all around. A culture fundamentally different from our own just doesn't feel quite right, and this constantly felt incongruence is insightful lens-shaping friction. The way people do things won't always make sense, and our lack of understanding spurs us to find out what or why others see differently. For truly lens-shaping travel, observation is not enough, though. We must participate. Our lenses are not composed of observations, but experiences. Observation may open new ways for us to think, but experiences fundamentally change the way we see. 5. Mindfulness. Whether we know it or not, we are all our own opticians, making choices that will shape the lens our entire sensory experience must pass through before becoming the version of reality that exists in our heads. As no two people have ever lived the exact same life, everyone's lens is shaped at least slightly different. It is up to each of us as individuals to decide how to best shape our own unique lens based upon its current shape. To be aware of the shape of our own lens requires a certain mindfulness, mainly self-observation and awareness for those like aha moments when the difference between our lens and someone else's lens shows. The more we mind our lens, the better we can see through its distortions and work to shape our own. Other resources for shaping the lens through which you view the world. This list is but a handful of powerful resources for shaping your lens. There are many others that I'm simply unaware of, which are obviously not included in this list. Other resources I don't have the space, personal experience, or will to write into the permanent record of the internet right now include various forms of talk therapy, holotropic breathwork, vipassana meditation, marijuana, magic mushrooms, LSD, and other psychedelics. Each of these work best led by a professional guide, someone experienced you can trust, or at minimum extensively researched beforehand. It's funny if you think about it. Our lenses shape our view of the world precisely because our view of the world is so limited. To pull from the Percy quote above again, we simply change the grains in the handful of sand from the endless landscape of awareness we grasp, and we experience the world differently. By approaching the world with curiosity and understanding the limited scope of our lenses, we can shape and reshape our experience of the world at a fundamental level. And what a weird, wonderful human freedom that is. Thanks for listening.